Khabib Nurmagomedov's first fight in the UFC on January 20, 2012, at UFC on FX1 in Nashville, Tennessee, stands today as one of those moments in combat sports history that only gains its true meaning with time. When Khabib walked into the Octagon that night, there were no thunderous reactions from the crowd and no promotional buildup framing him as a future star. He was simply another newcomer on the card, an undefeated fighter from Dagestan with a strong regional R-sum, but no mainstream recognition. Yet within that quiet entrance lay the foundation of a career that would later be described as one of the most dominant and disciplined in the history of mixed martial arts. At the time of his debut, Khabib carried a perfect 16-0 professional record, built largely outside the UFC in promotions unfamiliar to most American fans. His wins had come through a mix of submissions, ground and pound, and positional dominance, but numbers alone did not guarantee success at the highest level. The UFC lightweight division was already stacked with talented strikers, elite wrestlers, and seasoned veterans, and many fighters had arrived with impressive records only to struggle under the pressure of the Octagon. Khabib, however, brought something deeper than statistics, a mindset shaped by years of intense training, discipline, and a cultural emphasis on humility and hard work. Unlike many debuting fighters who attempt to make a statement through aggressive trash talk or flashy entrances, Khabib's demeanor was calm and almost understated. He showed little interest in selling himself or entertaining the crowd with theatrics. Instead, his focus was inward, centered on execution, control, and adherence to his game plan. This mental composure was not accidental. It was the product of a lifetime spent in combat sports under the guidance of his father, Abdulmanap Nurmagomedov, who emphasized structure, patience, and respect over ego and emotion. Standing across from Khabib was Kamal Shalorus, a seasoned lightweight with a strong wrestling background and prior UFC experience. Shalorus was not a showcase opponent or an easy introduction to the promotion, but rather a deliberate test. He had competed against tough fighters before and possessed the physical strength and grappling ability to challenge a newcomer. For Khabib, this matchup represented more than just a debut. It was an opportunity to prove that his style, forged in regional circuits and combat sambo competitions, could succeed against a capable and experienced UFC opponent. From the opening seconds of the fight, Khabib's approach was clear and consistent with the philosophy that would define his entire career. He moved forward with purpose, cutting off space rather than chasing damage, and immediately looked to close the distance. There was no reckless striking or desperate attempt to end the fight early, only controlled pressure designed to force Shalorus into uncomfortable positions. This ability to dictate where the fight took place, both physically and mentally, became one of Khabib's most powerful weapons over time. As the fight progressed, Khabib repeatedly drove Shalorus toward the cage, using it as a tool to limit movement and create grappling opportunities. Once the fight hit the mat, the difference in control became apparent. Khabib did not rely on brute strength alone, instead using leverage, balance, and technique to maintain dominant positions. Every attempt by Shalorus to stand or create space was met with another takedown, another transition, or another adjustment that kept him pinned beneath Khabib's weight and pressure. What stood out most during these exchanges was Khabib's patience. Rather than rushing to finish the fight, he focused on wearing his opponent down, round by round. Short punches, positional advancements, and constant pressure served a larger purpose, breaking Shalorus physically and mentally. This was not a style designed for highlight reels, but for certainty. Khabib's approach removed chaos from the equation, replacing it with inevitability. This philosophy reflected a deeper understanding of combat that many fighters take years to develop. Khabib did not fight to entertain or impress, he fought to control and win. In doing so, he demonstrated a maturity uncommon for a UFC debutant. Even under the bright lights of a major promotion in a foreign environment far from home, he remained composed and methodical, showing no signs of panic or adrenaline-fueled mistakes. As the fight entered later rounds, the cumulative effect of Khabib's pressure became increasingly evident. Shalorus, though tough and determined, began to slow down, his movements heavier and his defense less effective. Khabib, on the other hand, maintained his pace and structure, a testament to his conditioning and preparation. This ability to sustain pressure without fading would later become a defining trait in his championship fights. Eventually, the relentless control and ground and pound forced the referee to step in, awarding Khabib a third-round TKO victory. The finish itself was less important than the process that led to it. Khabib had demonstrated not just skill, but a system, a repeatable formula built on discipline, control, and mental strength. His undefeated record moved to 17-0, but more importantly, he had announced his presence to those paying close attention. At the time, this debut did not dominate headlines or generate immediate superstardom. Many fans saw it as a solid but unremarkable performance, unaware that they were witnessing the first chapter of an undefeated UFC career. In hindsight, however, this fight perfectly encapsulated everything Khabib Nurmagomedov would later become, a fighter who imposed his will without chaos, who valued control over spectacle, and who approached combat with clarity and purpose. Khabib's first UFC fight was not about making noise, it was about laying a foundation. That foundation would later support victories over elite opponents, world titles, and an undefeated legacy. What began quietly in Nashville would eventually echo across the sport, redefining dominance in mixed martial arts and proving that true greatness does not always announce itself loudly. It simply does its work and lets history speak later. Once the fight hit the mat, the difference in grappling skill became obvious, as Khabib used relentless takedowns, body locks, and trips to put Shalorus on his back repeatedly. Every time Shalorus tried to stand, Khabib dragged him down again, chaining techniques together with no wasted movement. This constant pressure began to drain Shalorus physically and mentally, round by round. In the first round, Khabib focused on establishing dominance rather than dealing damage, pinning Shalorus to the canvas and maintaining heavy top control. He landed short punches and elbows, not to finish the fight immediately, but to wear his opponent down and slowly remove hope. It was a methodical approach that did not excite the crowd instantly, but it sent a clear message to anyone watching closely. The second round followed the same suffocating pattern, with Khabib continuing to dictate where the fight took place and refusing to allow Shalorus any breathing room. Shalorus showed toughness and heart, surviving the pressure and refusing to quit, but he was unable to create any meaningful offense. Khabib's calmness, balance, and patience stood out, especially for someone making his UFC debut. By the third round, the physical toll of Khabib's grappling dominance was clearly visible, as Shalorus's movements slowed and his defense began to break down. Khabib increased his aggression, advancing positions more quickly and landing heavier ground and pound. The fight no longer felt competitive. It felt like a demonstration of control and inevitability. Midway through the third round, Khabib secured a dominant position and unleashed a series of unanswered punches that forced the referee to step in. The fight ended via TKO, giving Khabib his first UFC victory and extending his undefeated record to 17-0. There was no dramatic celebration or emotional outburst, only a composed fighter who had completed his task. At the time, this victory did not shake the MMA world or dominate headlines, as it lacked a flashy knockout or viral moment. Many fans viewed it as a solid but unremarkable debut, unaware of the legacy it would later represent. In hindsight, this fight became the foundation of one of the most dominant careers the UFC has ever seen. Khabib's debut showcased the core elements that would define his entire career, including relentless pressure, elite grappling, and an unmatched ability to control opponents. Unlike fighters who rely on explosive moments or chaos, Khabib relied on inevitability and structure. He broke opponents down slowly until resistance simply disappeared. Another important aspect of this first fight was Khabib's composure, as he showed no emotional highs or lows throughout the bout. He did not react to crowd noise, minor setbacks, or fatigue, remaining focused on his game plan from start to finish. This mental discipline proved to be just as dangerous as his physical strength. Khabib's background in combat sambo, wrestling, and judo was clearly visible in how smoothly he transitioned between positions. He flowed from takedowns to control, from control to strikes, and from strikes back to dominance without hesitation. This seamless blending of techniques was rare at the time. For UFC analysts and seasoned fans, this fight planted a quiet seed of curiosity, raising questions about how far Khabib could go with proper development. While casual viewers may have missed its importance, experienced eyes saw something special in his ability to impose his will so completely. It was dominance without chaos and power without recklessness. Khabib Nurmagomedov's UFC debut did more than introduce a new fighter to the promotion. It quietly revealed one of the most important weapons he would carry throughout his entire career: elite conditioning. From the opening bell to the final stoppage, Khabib maintained a relentless pace for 3 full rounds without showing visible signs of fatigue. His breathing remained controlled, his movement stayed sharp, and his pressure never faded, even as the fight wore on. This level of endurance was not accidental. It was the result of years of disciplined training in harsh environments, long sessions focused on wrestling, grappling, and mental toughness, and a philosophy that valued preparation above all else. Even in the later stages of the fight, when many debuting fighters begin to slow down due to adrenaline dumps or nerves, Khabib looked composed and steady. His takedowns did not lose power, his grip did not weaken, and his transitions remained smooth and precise. Conditioning allowed him to apply pressure without hesitation, knowing that time was on his side. This ability to push a high pace while remaining calm would later become one of his greatest advantages in 5-round championship fights, where opponents often broke down under the weight of his constant pressure long before he did. As Khabib's UFC career progressed, the blueprint established in his debut never truly changed. While the level of competition increased and the stakes grew higher, the core principles remained the same. Control the space, force grappling exchanges, wear the opponent down physically and mentally, and remove uncertainty from the fight. Whether he was facing an elite striker, a seasoned veteran, or a rising contender, Khabib relied on the same system that first appeared against Kamal Shalorus. Against Rafael dos Anjos, a former UFC lightweight champion known for his durability and experience, Khabib used pressure and grappling dominance to overwhelm him over 3 rounds. Against Edson Barboza, one of the most dangerous strikers in the division, he neutralized speed and power by taking the fight to the ground and controlling every moment. In his interim title fight against Iaquinta, Khabib demonstrated not only his grappling dominance but also improved striking, while still maintaining the same patient, methodical approach. Even in his highly anticipated clash with Conor McGregor, the blueprint remained unchanged: pressure, takedowns, control, and eventual submission. Each of these victories echoed the same story first told in Nashville during his UFC debut. The opponents changed, the lights grew brighter, and the expectations became heavier, but Khabib's identity as a fighter stayed consistent. This consistency is what separated him from many other champions, who often adapt their style to entertain or respond emotionally to the moment. Khabib adapted strategically, but never emotionally, trusting the process that had carried him from regional circuits to the top of the UFC. Looking back, Khabib's UFC debut represents far more than just his first win in the promotion. It marks the beginning of an era defined by discipline, structure, and inevitability. That night in Nashville was the moment when a future champion quietly stepped onto the biggest stage in mixed martial arts and showed the world exactly who he was, without noise, without hype, and without exaggeration. There were no bold predictions or grand statements, only performance. What makes this debut particularly significant is how little it relied on spectacle. In a sport often driven by knockouts, trash talk, and viral moments, Khabib chose a different path. He focused on fundamentals, positional control, and efficiency, trusting that true dominance would eventually command attention on its own. This approach reflected a deep respect for the sport and its traditions, where victory is earned through mastery rather than performance. Khabib fought to win, not to entertain, and that mindset shaped how he was perceived throughout his career. Early on, some fans criticized his style as less exciting, but over time, that criticism faded as his dominance became undeniable. Fighters respected him for his discipline, analysts admired his consistency, and fans eventually recognized the beauty in his control. His approach proved that effectiveness does not need to be flashy to be historic. Khabib's first UFC fight may not be remembered for drama, controversy, or unforgettable highlights, but it is remembered for its meaning. It was the start of a journey that would end with a perfect 29-0 record, an undefeated championship reign, and a legacy built on discipline, faith, humility, and unmatched control. Every champion has a beginning, and for Khabib Nurmagomedov, that beginning was quiet, patient, and deliberate. This debut also symbolized Khabib's personal values, as he carried himself with respect before, during, and after the fight. There was no excessive celebration, no disrespect toward his opponent, and no need to draw attention to himself. He treated the fight as work, something to be done properly and efficiently. This mindset would later define his public image as much as his in-cage dominance. In the broader context of UFC history, Khabib's debut serves as a reminder that greatness does not always announce itself with fireworks. Sometimes it arrives calmly, executes its purpose with precision, and leaves without demanding recognition. Only later, with time and perspective, does its true significance become clear. Khabib's first UFC fight was exactly that moment, the calm before a storm that would eventually reshape the lightweight division forever. Years after his retirement, fans and analysts often revisit that debut with a new level of appreciation. What once seemed like a routine grappling-heavy performance is now viewed as the first glimpse of a once-in-a-generation fighter. The pressure, the conditioning, the composure, and the control were all there from the very beginning. Nothing was accidental, and nothing was rushed. In the end, Khabib Nurmagomedov's UFC debut stands as a case study in how dominance is built, not declared. It shows that foundations matter, that discipline compounds over time, and that true champions reveal themselves through consistency rather than noise. That night in Nashville was not just a debut, it was the first chapter of a legacy that would leave an indelible mark on mixed martial arts history.